Hi guys, and welcome to a very special episode of In the Town Where I Was Born, where we are going to be joined by a very exciting guest.
As usual, Sam and Dave will be chatting to this guest and I'll be providing some stats and a little bit of banter.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our very special guest, new manager, Mr. Calum McIntyre. So Calum, thank you very much for joining us on In a Town Where I Was Born. Now, the last few days have probably been a real whirlwind for you. How's it been?
Yeah, manic to be fair, but brilliant. Really positive start, but it's immensely busy, and I think the nature of the circumstances in the country at the moment means it's quite unique. I think generally when you're appointed as a manager, it's either ahead of a pre-season in the traditional sense of you're ready to plan for a July start in terms of pre-season and an August season, or you're appointed mid-season and you're preparing for a game in sort of 48, 72 hours. So to be appointed at what traditionally would be 10 days away from pre-season, but ultimately I think we're a period of time away from that, means that things are a little bit different. So the first couple of days in terms of what I've done, obviously spoke to the old manager, Michael Ellison, picked the phone up pretty early doors, and the first protocol is to speak to the players that are existing sort of at the football club, and begin some conversations. The dynamic of those conversations is obviously quite unique, given the circumstances that we're in that it's impossible to predict the start date for the actual start of the competitive campaign. Players that will want to know more about me and how we do things, so we've had some sort of really positive discussions early doors, and I'm sort of gradually doing that. It sounds like something simple to do. If there wasn't the restrictions in place, you would have the group in together, so instead there's been some sort of personal conversations. Equally I've been inundated with phone conversations from managers across the levels. It's unbelievable the support as a young manager that I've had across the board. That's at National League level, National League North, and at this level as well, whether it's a text to wish all the best. So I've been really touched on a personal level to have been able to speak to so many talented and experienced managers to sort of discuss things.
Yeah, and obviously most people know where you've come from and your sort of background a little bit. Obviously, big one on social media is your good mate Jono. What's he said to you since you've come in?
Class. Look, I've a lot's been made of it. So I'm coming from Chester Football Club, where I will remain as the academy manager. I don't think what's really been made a case of is that I've actually been in the senior setup at Chester for 3 of the last 4 seasons. I've worked under 3 different management teams and some unbelievable coaches, and I think it's very easy to look at me and think, oh, it's an under-18s manager who's never worked at senior football. That's fine. I'm used to that tag in terms of my age being used as a thing, so it doesn't bother me or sort of deter me from my work in any way. I've worked under a lot of managers at Chester, obviously notably at the moment Byrne and Jono, unbelievable guys. Jono particularly I've spoke to a lot in the last 7 days, and he was very supportive of me sort of going for the job. Everyone knows what they've done at this level, but equally I worked under Marcus Bignett, John McCarthy, Steve Burr, and Neil Young in this division. Obviously he was at Marine, so I've, as much as I wasn't in the senior setup necessarily with Neil and Steve, I was able to pick things up in terms of knowing how they did things, so had some brilliant mentors. But yeah, as you say, Jono's been great, Byrne's been great, and to be fair, I'm looking forward to putting in place a lot of things I've learned from those managers that I've referenced.
So you've just mentioned then, obviously, you're a young manager. Something, obviously, in your interview, you're possibly the youngest manager in the football pyramid. If anyone else knows any different, let us know.
I think I was last time, to be fair.
So, I mean, and that's something for me, I see that as a plus point. It's something that people will talk about Runcorn Linnets for. But you are quite experienced, aren't you, for your age? So you just want to tell us a bit about what experience you've had?
Yeah, I think the age. Look, I could probably get away with saying I'm about 15 years older at the moment until I've had a haircut and a shave, I'll be honest. I should have just sort of persevered and claimed I was 41.
Yeah, because you've claimed to me, at least for the last 3 days, that this is not how you look.
Oh, honestly, yeah. Get me a haircut and I can get my beard looked after.
And on the picture that Chester tweeted to announce it as well, that did look like a different person. That didn't look like you. He's better
looking, yeah, definitely. So in terms of my experience, I was really fortunate to be able to work in football from 18. So this isn't something I've picked up halfway through. I've had some really good experiences at a variety of levels in the game. I've been able to work with a pre-academy programme with really young players, and I'm talking 5, 6 and 7s, not necessarily relevance experience practically at Manchester United. I was able to meet some brilliant people. But the crux of my football experience has been in the National League and the National League North. And like I say, working under some brilliant managers, some brilliant coaches, and in a senior environment. So as much as I've had success at youth level and people perhaps associate me with Chester's Youth Academy, I went in at 24 as caretaker manager in a really difficult circumstance at the club that I was at. And that was an eye-opener. That was being 24 and you're asked to lead a group of men in really difficult circumstances, a group that were already relegated, and I had to do it properly. Those that were involved at the time would probably give a better account than myself in terms of what it was like. And ultimately I've had to generate my level of experience from how I've done it. You look at players and ultimately players that go into coaching and they get a level of respect for perhaps what they've achieved in the playing days. I've had to go at it from my own route. I've always been too young for every job I've ever had. I was too young to be working with under 18s when I was 19 years old and appointed. I was too young to go and support the first team staff at 22. I was too young to be a caretaker manager at 24. It does not bother me. What I'm aware of is I will get people around me that will offer an experience that I can't yet, and I think I've done that over recent days, making, in my opinion, I've brought in the most experienced coach that will be in this division next season. I've brought in a sports therapist that brings, like I say, a wealth of experience, and will continue to add to that to ensure that it's for the benefit of Runcorn Linnets. So my experience is different than perhaps a lot of managers in this division, but I'll be judged the same way that they are after 10 games, I'm sure.
You mentioned Chester, obviously, and it's an obvious link. You know, yourself, you've come from Chester, you're still going to be working at Chester. I think the sports therapist has been at Chester as well. A lot's been made of that on social media. Some of it has been quite fun, some of it not so. What's your thoughts on that?
I don't really see it, to be honest. My phone was going mad, you can imagine, with Twitter notifications in the first sort of 24 hours, but it's not something I really look at, and I don't think you can. I think if you want to do this job, they're ultimately very, very separate, but I would understand concerns of any sort of association that deteriorates from Runcorn Linnets. I'm here to manage Runcorn Linnets. I'm remaining as Chester's Academy manager, that's my full-time job. The position at Runcorn Linnets at this level, of course, it's not full-time. Of course, there might be some benefit along the way, but I'm here to do things exclusively for Runcorn Linnets and for their benefit. Of course, the backroom staff that I'm going to bring in, there may well be a Chester connection, given that I've worked with them before, I trust them. But in terms of how I feel about it, I'm here to get the best squad for Runcorn Linnets to compete this season in the division that we're in. I'm here to bring the best players to this football club, to retain the services of the best players that are already here. It has nothing to do with Chester Football Club. Chester have been brilliant for me. The Chester supporters I've got a brilliant bond with. I want to establish that bond with the Runcorn Linnets supporters and be judged and remembered for what I've done at Runcorn Linnets, not for the fact that I was here at the same time that I was at Chester.
So we're not going to be Chester reserves or Chester youth team, are we?
No, so good question. Couldn't be further from the truth. So I get the opportunity perhaps to sort of talk around sort of my beliefs football-wise. I have an idea of a squad that I want to put together in this division. That isn't a squad of 18-year-old boys that are at Chester or were at Chester last year that are going to be playing in this division. Ultimately, you need a balance. I believe I can attract some real high-quality players to this football club. I believe that the previous management team collectively have established a real strong group of players that it's tremendous for a manager to be able to come in and have that core and that group to have discussions with in the first instance. This is all about Runcorn Linnets, not about Chester, not about my previous involvement there. It's about bringing the best players in, retaining the best possible players and get the best possible results. I understand it, I get how people look at things, but the link really is the fact that I'm still employed there, and I don't think anyone can begrudge full-time employment in a role you've been in for a number of years in the current climate. Well, surely not. No.
Now, you did mention before about you're probably going to be judged about the first 10 games. Now, I know our resident statistician, Mark Buckley, has got some stats about Runcorn in its first 10 games in charge.
Yeah, Cal becomes our 6th permanent manager since forming in 2006. So we've not had a high turnover of managers over the years. Don't read too much into the first 10 games, because these managers came into the club in very different circumstances. Some, as Cal says, had a bit of a pre-season. Ello, for instance, had no pre-season whatsoever, and he was trying to fit square pegs into round holes. And so don't read too much into it. But Steve Carragher was our first manager. He inherited the old Runcorn Football Club squad pretty much and added to it. Interestingly enough, in that initial squad, we had Jerome McIntyre, who isn't a relation. So Cal isn't the first McIntyre to represent Runcorn Linnets, but we have had one before. So in 2006 we had Jerome. So Carragher got off to a pretty good start and won 6 out of his 10. Stevie Wilkes came in mid-season, if you remember, when we were in great shape in our second season. He started at Cheadle, if you remember, and we clapped him onto the pitch, and it was a great feeling. Paul McInally, again, struggled in his first 10 really, but it's hard to judge people on those first 10. Joey got off to a flyer with 8 wins in 10. Inherited a squad mid-season that maybe were a bit, down on confidence and not playing that well. Added a little bit to it and got them playing quick. And then Ello, as we say, started the season with very little notice up in the northeast, if you remember, in the FA Cup, with Aaron Morris playing in midfield, looking a bit like Bambi on ice. And within 6 months, he turned him into a Rolls Royce of a defender. So you can't judge, but the stats I think producer Dave is going to put on screen, and we should be seeing them as I'm talking. It's interesting, and I just want to wish Cal and his team the very best of luck. It's exciting times for me. I've just had my first look at the pitch, and I can't wait to see us playing football on it. I can't wait for this nonsense to be over and get playing football.
Cheers, Mark.
Cheers, Bucko.
So, when you were you seen the role of Runcorn come around, what did you know about Runcorn already, if anything, or was it a totally where's this place? I know you're not too far away. You live in Chester as well, but
that C word, Sam. That C word.
Sorry, I dropped the C word.
Basically, I knew it was the right time for me to go into senior management, and I discussed that with those I was in the role with sort of elsewhere. But it had to be the right club, and it had to be a club where I felt I could deliver what I believe I can. I saw the role advertised, I applied. What do I know about Runcorn Linnets? Obviously we had Louis Hayes here last season on loan. I'm aware of the success. I count Matt Atherton as a friend, did some coaching badges with others. When I sort of applied for the job, I asked some questions, and he spoke so highly of the football club, of the supporters, that probably generated an excitement. I was aware of the success and the unbelievable season they had, getting promotion out of the North West Counties. So I felt like I had a fleeting knowledge. I wouldn't claim to have known the ins and outs. For me, I looked into the role, I sent my CV and an application, and I was sort of fortunate to be selected for interview. I was interviewed thoroughly by sort of four interviewers. But I also attached an 11-slide presentation to the board, which was ultimately my vision. And what I was quite clear on was that would probably either get me the role or not get me the role, to be honest, because that was how I believe the game should be played, what I will demand of players, how we will ultimately create the environment to get those results. I came away from the interview, I was offered the job, and it just feels right. I look at obviously the pitch has been referenced. That's huge at this level of football, both in the attraction of players, but allow us to play a brand of football that ultimately will deliver results. You play half your season on your home pitch. As strange as that sounds, you will go everywhere else once and play there for an hour and a half. On our pitch, we're going to play 19 of our 38 games. If you can do things right at home and generate the results that we want at home, we won't go far wrong.
So you touched on it a little bit there about joining the club or certainly applying. You've got a lot of experience at Chester as the academy director, also with the first team. You obviously took caretaker charge after Mark Spignett left, so you've got that experience there. So why at this time did you decide, actually, you know what, this is the time and that's the job for me?
Ironically, you don't want to become in the same role forever. And that's why I can sort of assure people it isn't an extension of what I'm doing at Chester and trying to forge a link. I've had the same role at Chester, both in an academy level and at first team level, for a number of years. I need to go and carve out my own career and ultimately demonstrate that I can do the job that I believe I can do and deliver the success that I believe I can deliver at the level that I think I can do it. I knew now was the right time. I really enjoyed my spell as caretaker at Chester, I'll be honest. It was remarkable, the first sort of 48, 72 hours, because there were issues at the football club financially at the time that meant, I think, the unique circumstances I sort of endured for 14 days, the first 14 days, I don't think I'll ever go through in football again. But I got a taste of management. Being able to work closely with the two managers at Chester at present has sort of got me in a place where I went, I want to go and do this. But I'm realistic as to I wanted to go in at the right level, and I always acknowledged this division would be the right level. However, for my recruitment of players, location was always important, and that would mean a club in a certain area. That desire to do that and why it was the right time, it just felt right. I think the COVID pandemic means it feels really strange. It feels like I haven't got started as much as I think I've been at the ground 4 of the last 6 days, you know what I mean?
I think we've been with you.
I feel like I've spent all my time here with the staff and stuff like that, and on the phone. That means it feels a little bit strange, because ultimately you can't plan directly, but it felt right. And you talk about the stuff with the pitch, and this football club needs to be at the right end of this division. Let's be really realistic, all right, in terms of the size of this football club at this level, and I believe I can help deliver that.
So we've talked a lot personally about the Linnets being fan-owned, and that's something that's really important to us. We're all trust members. Obviously, I'm on the board. It's our club. This where we're sat now. This belongs to us. This is ours. That pitch, it's ours, and that's important to us. But where do you think? Where do you think there's a glass ceiling for a fan-owned club, or do you think, could we, at Runcorn Linnets and its current model, could we get to the National League back where the old club belongs, or where the old club was, and where a lot of people my age and older, like Bucko over there, think we belong?
I'm an enormous advocate of fan ownership. I think particularly in the circumstances that, like I sort of reference in the country at the moment, that it is a far more secure model than the reliance on one income stream to ultimately resource your sort of football at a football club. A football club is a family, and ultimately there are people that you meet in your life that you'll only ever meet at the football. The guys you stand next to on the terrace that you see in the queue at the bar, and ultimately it's a sense of belonging to something that is as important to people as supporters than anything else in their lives. When I reference it's like a family, it matters to people as much as their family, and they will fight and be so proud of their football club. You can't compare, and I'm aware of that. That's why I think fan ownership is so special. A club like Runcorn, with the support that they get at this level of football, that's something to harness, and something I ultimately have to harness to get the best for the football team. In terms of the level we can go to, I think football's going to change in the next 12 to 18 months, so I think that's a difficult question to answer. But I believe that ultimately fan ownership gives you the opportunity for your supporters to feel a part of something, to feel a connection with the players, and ultimately play their part in the direction that the football club wants to go in. And I've been quite clear since I came in terms of I've engaged with the junior section, with the supporters group, and I want to do more of that. I want supporters to know that I'm really approachable. I want to be as accessible as possible. My players will be the same. The players that are already at the football club that will already have relationships with supporters will understand, and that's how I believe we should be. But ultimately, we need to do it together, and I need everyone. Everyone is a part of my team now, whether they are the programme sellers, whether they are manning the turnstile on a match day, working behind the bar, the volunteers, committee members. Everyone is doing everything they can to make sure come Saturday 3 o'clock we're in the best possible position to go and pick up 3 points for Runcorn Linnets.
Perfect. Now, you've talked about your academy sort of work that you do there, and you've had quite a few success stories. Tom Crawford's come out, gone to Notts County. You've had James Jones, Sam Hughes went on to Premier League, winning Leicester City. At what point do you see a player and think, he's got it, he could go far? One
day I'll do an interview where they don't ask me about them players, I promise you. But to be fair, I think it's the ability to compete in a man's environment where people are no longer saying, oh, he didn't look out of place, when the phrase is turned to, he's done well there. And when you have, in the players you question, a 17, 18, 19-year-old boy who is in a man's environment, ultimately they're still young, they're very young players, but they can compete physically, they can compete technically, they understand the tactical requirements, but equally they are confident enough to form a part of it. I think that's when you look at players and you feel they're going to go in the right direction. And look, the 3 players you mentioned there are tremendous players, and I know they're going to have really good careers. You saw, obviously, Sam was on the bench for Leicester in the Premier League at Wembley, but those players are out there. The ability is probably to recruit them, recognise what you need to do to develop them, and believe in them.
So you mentioned you'd met with the juniors, obviously. I think it was digitally, wasn't it, over Zoom? So you met with the juniors. We've got a young lad, a local lad, Ryan Gibson, one of the fans' favourites playing here, but he's the only one really. Do you think that's something that would be important? I know it would mean a lot to the fans to get more local players playing for their team.
I think it's the ideal, isn't it? Let's deal with the ideal world and the utopia, which is probably unrealistic and probably unachievable, is to have a team made of players that come through Runcorn Linnets juniors and come through every age group and ultimately go on to represent the first team. They live within 10 minutes of the ground. That probably is unrealistic, but that's got to be the ambition. The discussions I had with the juniors was largely to get to know them and welcome them and meet the staff that look after particularly the 21s, the 18s, the 17s. And ultimately, we need to make sure if there are players within the football club at the moment that are good enough and ready to make the step up in levels, we do that. One thing I want to introduce is almost, if we have boys that are flying perhaps at 18 in the under-21s programme, can we expose them to senior football at some level? Have we got players that can perhaps go into the lower echelons of the North West Counties, the West Cheshire divisions, and expose them at the right time to senior football? So that isn't something, I'll be honest, that we've had too much conversations about within the first sort of 6 or 7 days of being here. But it's something I'm determined to do. You talk about Ryan Gibson. I spoke to Ryan at length. I was really impressed by his character on the phone. We had a really good conversation about where he sees himself and where I see him. He's obviously a player I want to keep hold of. I don't have to tell the supporters of his talent. During the process of applying for the job, because I wanted to familiarise myself with as many players and games as possible, I watched 4 games on footage of Runcorn Linnets, so I'm aware of the players that are already here. We want the best possible players available to Runcorn Linnets.
Yeah, you said you picked a couple of games there, and we've talked. It was you picked a couple of humdingers as well. It was a 3-3 away at Dunstan. You had the 4-4 at Clitheroe. I know there are 2 games that you've mentioned. They were obviously we
exciting is probably an understatement, isn't it? Really, I think we were 3-0 down against Dunstan after 20 minutes, something ridiculous like that.
Crazy games. Well, Calum, thank you very much for joining us. It's been a real pleasure to have you. As I say all the time, I'm sure we'll have you back on at some point, and hopefully we can all jump on this journey with you and take us right to the top.
Brilliant, thanks for your time.
No worries, Calum. Thank you. Thank you very much for joining us on another very special episode of In a Town Where I Was Born.
Don't forget to follow us on YouTube, Twitter and Facebook.
See you soon.